In this video I'm going to take you on a field trip where I went looking for the former forward command post of Hans Lammers, who was a judge, administrative lawyer, ministerial official, and most importantly of all, he was the head of the Reich Chancellery under Hitler. The trip starts off here in the village of Radzieje, which before 1945 was called Rosengarten. At the beginning of the Second World War, 1,141 people lived here. The important detail for this story is the railway line. This line used to link Rastenburg, today Kentchen, with Angerburg, today Węgorzewo. The railway station still stands, although today it is used for housing. This railway line was of great importance during Operation Barbarossa. When Hitler had his field headquarters built near Rastenburg, it was this railway line that linked the important other headquarters such as that of the army at Mauerwald, today Mamerki. Hans Lammers had his headquarters between that of the army and the Wolf's Lair, and Ribbentrop was placed quite close too. Himmler was a little further away. Why they didn't put everything in just one place is beyond my understanding. At Berchtesgaden they all found somewhere close to each other, but admittedly that was not for alleged military purposes but for residences. To get to the headquarters of Hans Lammers one could just follow the railway line, but that would involve getting a bit wet trying to cross a stream. Once I got wet, I went back and I followed the road round, which was much easier. The headquarters of Hans Lammers was called Wendula. It was the smallest of the German command headquarters in Masuria. The facilities in use were arranged along a bending road made of concrete slabs close to the railway line. What appears to have been concrete parking lots remain at the ends of this road. Within the headquarters were two reinforced concrete bunkers located along the road. The larger bunker measures 22 by 15 meters. 7 brick barracks measuring 50 times 12 meters approximately were located along the road. Only the foundations though of these remain. The smaller bunker measures 9 by 7.5 meters. Wooden barracks were also positioned along the road from this bunker. The headquarters had full technical infrastructure which included a deep well and a sewage system, and of course, like everywhere else, was surrounded by barbed wire fences. Lammers, of course, was one of those in charge of the country, so he couldn't spend as much time as Hitler did, cooped up here, lost in the forests of East Prussia. On the 20th of August 1944, as the Red Army approached East Prussia, the Operations Department of the Air Force Supreme Command, that is OKL, moved to the Wendula headquarters. This means that Lammers probably didn't return there after that date and had possibly not even been there for some time. Let's now return to the subject of Hans Lammers. In this photograph you can see him aged 42 as a civil servant who'd gone through World War I where he'd lost an eye. At the time that this photograph was taken, he was a senior government councillor, shortly to be a ministerial councillor and head of the Constitutional Affairs Unit in the Constitutional Law Department. Here he represented the Reich in legal proceedings against the individual German states. Here you can see him now 27 years later, aged 69 and in prison. At the trial of prominent Nazi civil servants he received a 20-year prison sentence. Due to his far-right political opinions, which he didn't hide, Hans Lammers was passed over for promotion during the Weimar period. However, this changed when the Nazis came to power. It was Hitler who appointed Lammers as State Secretary and head of the Reich Chancellery. He followed a suggestion from early Nazi Wilhelm Frick, who wanted a highly qualified ministerial official in this position and not just a political advisor. As cabinet meetings were rare, Lammers passed on Hitler's wishes to other branches of government and to the Nazi Party. Furthermore, Hitler was particularly noted for his laziness and complete disdain of government matters. Thus, it was Lammers who translated Hitler's words into law. Lammers also handled Hitler's finances, which came directly from the state. This would be things like funds from the use of his likeness on postage stamps. As Hitler became increasingly involved in the war, Nazi Germany was effectively ruled by Lammers, together with Martin Bormann, Otto Meissner and Wilhelm Keitel. On the 26th of November 1937, he was appointed by Hitler as Reich Minister without portfolio, with the official title of Reich Minister and Chief of the Reich Chancellery. As the cabinet hardly ever met, this didn't mean very much in practice, but the title must have pleased his wife. However, it did mean that once the war started, that he sat on the Council of Ministers for Reich Defense, as from the 30th of November 1939, which was chaired by Hermann Göring. When Hitler decided to murder the physically and mentally challenged, as well as those with incurable diseases in the T4 program, Lammers would have been involved. Towards the end of the war, Lammers was in Berchtesgaden, where he was arrested in April 1945 for supporting the alleged attempt to replace Hitler with Göring. He was taken prisoner and interned by US troops, whilst his wife and daughter committed suicide. Until August 1945, he was interned at Camp Aschgan in Bad Mondorf, Luxembourg, along with other high-ranking Nazis and military officers. On the 8th and 9th of April 1946, Lammers appeared as a defence witness at the Nuremberg trials of the major war criminals. In the Wilhelmstrasse trial against employees of various ministries of the German Reich from 1933 to 1945, he was sentenced on the 11th of April 1949 by the 4th Allied Military Tribunal to 20 years imprisonment for war crimes and crimes against humanity, including complicity in the murder of the European Jews. On the 31st of January 1951, this sentence was reduced to 10 years by the American High Commissioner John McCloy, and on the 16th of December 1951 he was pardoned and released from Landsberg War Crimes Prison. He died on the 4th of January 1962 in Düsseldorf. The body of Hans Heinrich Lammers was buried in the grave of his wife and daughter in the old cemetery in Berchtesgaden, which you can see in a separate video.
Hello and welcome. So today I'm out in the forest, approximately 3 kilometers to the north of the Polish town of Radzieje, formerly Rosengarten. Incidentally, in Rosengarten, a German general was from there. I'm going to do a separate video on him because he later served in the DDR. Anyway, but that's not the point of this video. I'm here to show you what was once here. This location where I am now, this was the forward field headquarters of Hans Lammers, head of the Third Chancellery in Berlin, but like everyone else high up in the Third Reich, he needed to be close to Hitler. And so this here was his field HQ. Now, in 1940, Hitler decided he was going to invade the Soviet Union, probably in the summer of that year. And construction started on the Wolf's Lair at Rastenburg, which is relatively close to here as well. And in order to hide what they were doing from the locals, they said that it was for a chemical company that they were actually building there. And that would explain how this chemical has a military significance, so that's why there were so many guards and people like that there. Then other people needed to be near Hitler. Well, number 2 in the Third Reich was effectively Göring. He had a house there, but he didn't appreciate living there at all, as most people didn't. And so he had a hunting lodge on the Romanton Heath. It's now in East Prussia, so we won't be seeing that in East Prussia, in the Kaliningrad Oblast. It was then in East Prussia, it's now in the Kaliningrad Oblast of Russia, so we won't be seeing that in any videos until there is a regime change in Moscow anyway. And Himmler got a place at what is today Pozezja. You can see that in other videos. Huge constructions there. and Ribbentrop was living, he wangled himself, don't quite know how yet, but I guess I'll find out eventually, at Stinort. He got half or at least the wing of a country palace there, very attractive. I went there yesterday on my bicycle, so you see it's really close to here. And where I'm standing right now, you can see you've got the wall there. This was the location of where Hans Lammers would stay. Now, we've got the wall which is quite flat, which leads me to think that this was probably the base for a wooden structure. I don't know, I'm just now guessing. That many of the buildings at the Wolfsschanze were also wooden structures. So it was in a building of this size where Hitler was when the bomb went off on the 20th of July, but it wasn't this one. So you can see trees now growing in the middle of where people once lived or stayed. I don't know if this was living quarters or what it was. I can't say. Now the thing is this, we know lots about Hitler at the Wolfsschanze. Hitler spent more than 800 days at the Wolfsschanze. Right, so that is well over half the time of the campaign against the Soviet Union. Indeed, the campaign against the Soviet Union, approximately 1,400 days, approximately. And so therefore, so well over half. Not only that, I mean, large part of that time he was also spending at Vinnytsia, or near Vinnytsia, in what is today Ukraine. Now, as I come out of here, you can see it's absolutely in the forest, but the road here, it's hardened. And I did try to get here today via another track, which when I ended up in the swamp, I decided I was going the wrong way. I wasn't going to make it, and I came off and went by the road for half the way, and then followed other sandy tracks, and then this came along, more than welcome. So the effectively the capital of the Third Reich during the Second World War wasn't really Berlin. It was either Berchtesgaden when Hitler was there, but he wasn't really there all that much. It was here in former East Prussia. And what they did was all of these places were near a railway line, so that they could get to Hitler quickly. Although on the 20th of July 1944, Himmler, when he was summoned, didn't have the time to get his train on the go, and so he had to he came by car. Now Lammers didn't have a car. There were 25 special trains in the Third Reich. So Goering had one, Himmler had one, Hitler had one, but the others were for the military, so it's sort of command centres. This, incidentally, wasn't one of the many privileges that the Nazis found for themselves. This existed before Hitler came to power, that the president had the right of his own special train. Only thing that Hitler did, of course, bearing in mind the corruption that existed in the Third Reich, he got himself a far better, the same as he did with the new Chancellery, his own private accommodation, all the rest of it. Huge resources were spent on these projects, and you have to say this, where did the money come from? It's quite clear it came from the taxpayer, which means to say that money wasn't being spent on other things. It's also worth pointing out the standard of living in Nazi Germany was very low. It was an economy which was based on the idea of theft. So you can see I left my bike here, and I'm now going to take you down here to show you what's here. So here's the railway line. So this linked these command posts of these various people. So to the left we've got Mamerki today. That was the Army High Command, and so that was where the generals largely would hang out. And when they were called Hitler situation conferences and the like, they would come down. If they came down by rail, then they came down this way. They may have travelled by road, depending on the circumstances. Now, that I put to you is much better than what, for example, when Hitler was in Berlin, if we read the accounts of people such as Guderian, for example, and Speer, where they describe the difficulties getting in. So the amount of time that Guderian had to spend in his vehicle getting to Hitler, it was really a very large part of his day which he should have spent trying to defend Germany from the Soviets. So anyway, Mamerki's that way, and also whereas Himmler and Ribbentrop, I suspect Ribbentrop maybe not so much, but certainly Himmler would have had to come this way as well on his train down this line. And so Hitler would be found down here in this direction, and that's also the way to Radzieje, formerly Rosengarten. And as you can see, it's really strange actually. I'm very surprised that the railway line is still here, and it looks as although it has been used recently. I mean, it's a bit rusty, but in other places further down you can see it hasn't. It's completely overgrown, and indeed this morning I ended up in the marsh. I intended to follow the railway line, but the railway line was really difficult to follow. It doesn't look it here, but it was earlier. I mean, here had been no problem at all. In fact, I wouldn't have even come on my bicycle. I'd have just walked had I known. Anyway, I tried. Well, pushing your bike through a marsh isn't always a good thing either. So come through here. Come back. There's a bit wet down here, and I'll take you now into the bunker. Now, in the Lair, for example, on the 20th of July 1944, Hitler had these enormous bunkers there, and the conference was due to take place in one of the bunkers. However, the plans changed. It was put into a wooden hut, and because of the wooden hut, which released the blast force, then that was one of the reasons why Hitler survived. Indeed, if it had been in a bunker, it's hard to believe that anyone would have survived. Now, the bunker here is not like the bunkers at Pozsgye, where Himmler was, or at Rastenburg. This one's a much cheaper one. But still curious enough to see. Now, at Pozsgye and at Rastenburg, 2 meter thick reinforced concrete. Now, so no windows, of course, no nothing. There may have been air conditioning, I don't know. And so you've got there's a vent up there. Now, behind the vents were also filters. I don't know in this case, but in the case of Mamerki at Rastenburg and at Pozsgye, that was the case. So you can see part of it here, something here which has been destroyed. What they did even was they disguised the roof as being part of the forest, using moss. Trees were planted on it and all sorts. You can see here, though, I got a good idea of the reinforced concrete, the amount. And look at that, the metal, well over 80 years old, heading on for 90 years old, and look what good condition it's still in. Right, I'm going to be careful here because it's a bit wet. And so this is the way in, and then let's have another look. Now, here on the roof, I think there would have been ceramic tiles. At Pozsgye you could see some ceramics. So come in. Here's a little advertisement. It says, "Man over 40 would like a free man, available man would like to meet a lady," and there's the SMS. So I wouldn't have thought that this was the best place to leave him matrimonial advertisements, but maybe it was. Now, as you came in to these places, often there would be something like this, where there'd be machine guns behind them. So shouldn't enemies somehow get in, then that could be a defence. Here, there's a very good example where you've got to be really careful with places like this. I mean, this isn't sharp as such, but it is it's there, and it'll won't do you any good if you suddenly jump up suddenly. So this is what's left of it. But you know, when I look at it, I mean, now being here, I find it so amazing that this reinforced concrete structures should have survived so well for so long. And at the moment, no, it's in the forest. It's no one's looked after it for all this time. Quite amazing. Having said that, here we'll have a little walk up here. One of the things I would actually point out is that the amount of resources that went into this, absolutely enormous resources, which should have been given to protect the citizens who were being bombed. This was well outside any Allied planes when built, not towards the end of the war as in technology improved, and not as the line approached. So it gives you an idea of the forest around here. So Hans Lammers was born in 1879. He was born in what is today Lubliniec, and in Lower Silesia, now in Poland. He studied at Wrocław. He studied at Breslau, I should say. Studied law. He initially worked, after finishing his studies, he worked for the university, worked in legal private practice, and he was a judge. That's what he wanted to do. First World War broke out. He had to go to the army, and whilst in the army in 1917 he lost an eye, and you can sort of see this in the photographs of him. One of his eyes looks a bit strange. And anyway, after that he was deemed not fit to fight, but he was sent to the government of occupied Poland, and he ran, I think it was the financial office there. But after the end of the war, he was given the task of closing down the government. So a bit in the way sort of you liquidate a company, his job was to liquidate the assets of the German government of Poland in 1919. After that, he started to work in Berlin in the government, but because of his opinions, which he supported the Deutsche Nationale Volkspartei, the quasi-fascist DNVP, later to be Hitler's coalition partner. His career path was somewhat limited, so he got more or less as high as he was likely to get, but certainly nobody in the SPD would be likely to allow him to advance any further. He joined the Nazi Party in 1932, and Hitler, I've got to say something positive for Hitler now. Hitler didn't want a party hack to run his chancellery. He wanted a professional, a political professional, somebody who knew his way around. He was looking for efficiency in this case, which is unusual, and so somebody, I can't remember who, someone recommended Lammers to him, and I don't think he was disappointed by Lammers at all. Lammers joined the Nazi Party in 1932, he joined the SS, etc. Now, so his role was largely that of transcribing Hitler's wishes into law. Hitler wasn't a details person. He was somebody who he could say more or less what he wanted. Then Lammers put this into text. So for this he worked with Otto Meissner, who had looked after previous presidents. Otto Meissner had been the head of the presidential chancellery since 1920, and also Martin Bormann later, and then as from 1938 Wilhelm Keitel as well. So as Bormann didn't hang around here, and certainly Meissner didn't either, they were both in Berlin, but Keitel was around here. So this is the thing with this area, we know so much about Hitler, what he did here, but we don't know much about what the others, including Himmler. Don't really know what he did and the amount of time he spent here. If we read Albert Speer's book, we see Lammers as being effectively one of the people who ran the Third Reich. So he was one of those in charge. Very loyal to the dictator, but all the same, doing the dictator's job in Berlin. So in 1945, he was somewhere in Berchtesgaden. Now, he got married. His wife was 15 years younger, and they had 2 children. The first one was born the 3rd of August 1914. The second was born in 1918. In 1945, in the region of Berchtesgaden, his wife and his younger daughter being only 27 years old, committed suicide. He, however, didn't. And he was a witness for the defense at Nuremberg trials. There was the Wilhelmstrasse trial, which was a civil service trial, and he got a prison sentence, but in 1951 he was released, and he died in 1962. I've got a video actually from his grave in Berchtesgaden that you might actually want to see. I do need to point out that I've never been here before, and so you're seeing this for the first time, as I am. So we have this other structure here. This is a shelter type B. Entrance. Light on. Well, that door's not original. There'd have been a gas tight door here, and you see there that would have been some kind of weapon behind there. You see, it must have been very unpleasant not being in places like this. Obviously it's far worse now because of the condition, but really most unpleasant. Being very careful as I walk out. Turn the light off. And we've got this building down here as well. I wonder what that was. Is it original? Can I get down there without... Oh, here we go. Keep my eyes on the ground now, because in places like this, first of all, no one knows I'm here. You see, you wouldn't want to end up falling down something like that. That's a... I can't tell what... No, that's an entrance. Oh, is it? I can't tell. Oh, is it a well? I can't tell. I thought it might have been something underground. So what is that there? I don't think that's original. But then again, it might be, who knows. But why would somebody build it out here in the middle of nowhere? I see something blue has been put on the fences there. I thought that was to scare the animals away from... I noticed a number of places here. So that was my theory. I don't know. So there you go. Wasn't expecting that out here. Almost stood on a frog. You can see from the other side here. That's amazing that it survives. I know I keep repeating the same things. One thing I find amazing is in the condition. Maybe it's something with the climate here, I don't know. There's the light fittings. There's a light fitting. I don't know. Oops. That's an air duct. Well, that really was an amazing find. Totally unexpected as well. So here in the forest there is a depression which doesn't look to me to be natural. I have no idea what it might be, but you can see it continues for some distance into the forest. What could have been here? Could it have been a railway siding? I don't know, I'm just guessing here. A cutting, I should say, not a siding. well, siding for the railway, leading through a cutting. But it's going in a straight direction, and it's going towards the bunker down there. Oh, there's the frog. Frog. Oh, that's a nice one. There he is. There's a frog, green frog. Anyway, I don't know what it is. Often I hear people think they can just run off and hide in a forest, but I can say this: a forest is not your friend. It's very difficult, in my opinion, for us city dwellers to spend time in forests, and the amount of insects. Okay, I've got some protective stuff on me, but without that, so people who actually ran away to hide in the forests, you know, is unless eating frogs and mushrooms, it's not easy. Obviously, the people who are used to it and have done it for a very long time, that would be different. If I could just give a shout out actually to a friend of mine, he produces this stuff here called the bug spray. Now without this I wouldn't be able to do this, and I've got video of me actually going into forests with sandals and short trousers. Today I'm not, I've got long trousers and normal shoes or training shoes, because I thought I need a little bit extra protection if I'm going in these buildings. But it works very well, and thanks to him I wouldn't be able to do this easily anyway. It costs more than the stuff you buy from the chemist or the supermarket, but it's much better. So I'll give you a link to that should you be interested. So I've just walked up a bit around here, haven't been here before. I thought I would take you on an initial journey of discovery. I've left my bike behind back there. If only it had been like this earlier, it would have been a lot more easy for me. But I had to walk through a swamp thinking I was doing something a bit easier. That railway line does sort of interest me, but I'm now feeling I'm feeling too exhausted to push a bike down it, and so I'll just take the road, the normal road. I'll have to walk down sort of a track with where tractors have been, but then which is a bit difficult to cycle down because it's so rutted. But then I'll be on the road, so the road will be half my journey back to my vehicle. And but this here though, this is really easy to travel down. This is the sort of place, I could leave my van here, I could spend a couple of days, be quite happy. There you go. Hans Lammers. Oh, there's a bridge here. I really like the nature here as well. I mean, there was earlier, one of my favourite birds is the common crane, so I saw a couple of them. I also heard the black woodpecker, really attractive bird, completely black except for the beak, and got a very unusual cry. There you go. Okay, field headquarters, Hans Lammers. Wow, well, it took me a bit of an effort to get here, but I got here, so I'm pleased with myself for that. Thanks for watching. All the best. Bye for now.